감사합니다. 공익광고협의회.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
School is starting again and vacation season is over, at least for the most part. All in time for a new COVID surge. The timing is particularly of concern as it comes amid the prolonged doctor's walkout. And the government is stepping in to secure public hospital beds, and some hospitals are reintroducing those mask recommendations. You know, the freedom that comes with COVID no longer being a pandemic also means that individuals, we have to fend for ourselves to a certain extent. So let's make sure that we are taking all the necessary precautions necessary. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Monday, August 19th on BEFM, Busan 영어 방송. Good morning, Wavers. I hope you had a good weekend, whether it was spent at home or out and about. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you're certainly not suffering from COVID because, you know, I've had a few people around me say that they have come down with COVID. So, that being said, yes, the number of COVID cases are going up at a rapid pace with over 1,300 patients hospitalized in the last week from this virus. This marks the highest hospitalization rate for the entire year, and experts predict this surge will hit its peak at the end of this month. This wave comes as the country is now in we're in month 7 of the trainee doctors' walkout, which has caused major staff shortages at large hospitals. Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong said that the rate of serious patients is not very high and does not pose too big of a burden on the medical system, at least not right now. The government is working to secure additional beds in public hospitals. There has also been a shortage of COVID treatments and rapid testing kits in some hospitals and pharmacies, though. The health ministry said that it will more than double the treatment that they're looking into that, and is in the process of finalizing the budget with the financial authorities. The Disease Control Agency said that it is not going to bring back mask mandates, but it has heightened the recommendation to strongly advised and has asked for the public's cooperation in this. So, this is for all of us. If you have this inkling or you're just not feeling well, or maybe those around you, maybe at your workplace, they're coming down with something or something's going around, and whether it's COVID or not, or maybe it's just the summer cold, if something's going around, you might want to mask up and definitely check with your doctor if you're not feeling well. All right. And as you remember, Dr. Alice Tan, remember our last interview with her, she said the peak of this would come at the end of August, and apparently what she said was true. So that was during one of our special interviews. So yes, she was correct. Let's get to our text topic, though. Was your middle or high school co-ed? Co-ed meaning girls and boys, you know, going to school together? Or was it like an all girls or all boys school? And assuming you went to a school that had a uniform, what did your school uniform look like? And if you didn't have a uniform, what did you usually wear to school? Were there any rules? Did your school have policies on what you could or could not wear to school? 자, 여러분은 남중, 남고, 여중, 여고 아니면 남녀공학 어디 나오셨는지, 그리고 또 학창 시절에 교복은 어떻게 생겼는지 저는 그게 제일 부러워요. 학창 시절 때 그 교복을 안 입었잖아요. 그래서 그 처음에 한국에 왔을 때 when I first came to Korea, that was one of the first like Korean experiences that I wanted to do was try on the 교복 because I never like wore a uniform. So that was like a really fun experience for me. So tell me all about your school uniforms, your school days, whether it was co-ed or not. You can send in your messages to BFM's live stream live chat on YouTube. So go to that platform and then you search for BEFM or 부산 영어 방송. Please subscribe. You have to log in and you can chat away with our waivers out there. Also, on your phone, you can send in your message through pound 9050. That's going to cost you 100 won. You can also reach me for free on our Kakao Talk channel. You can listen to us, watch us in real time on the YouTube channel. Also, we have the Patbang app for your convenience as well. Looking ahead to our Monday morning together, we have Showbiz Buzz. That's with Michael. Business Perspectives. That's with Bobby. That's coming up in hour number 2. For our special interview today, we have entered what they're calling a new phase in the war in Ukraine. Yes, you may have heard about Ukraine's recent military incursion into the Russian Kursk region, which really does mark this significant turning point in this ongoing war. Let's find out what this actually means. That's coming up in hour number 2. And I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:06 and these are today's headlines. Lee Jae-myung re-elected DP chair in landslide victory. Former Democratic Party or DP chairman Lee Jae-myung won his second term as party chief with a record high 85.4% vote share during yesterday's national convention. Leaders of South Korea, U.S., and Japan reaffirmed commitment to security cooperation. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, U.S. President Joe Biden, and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida issued a joint statement celebrating progress in their trilateral security cooperation and vowed to bolster their ties across a broad range of areas. Number of economically inactive youth by choice hit record high in July. The number of South Korean youth opting to remain economically inactive without a specific reason set a new record in July amid economic uncertainties and high job competition. KTX back on schedule after derailment causes massive delays. A KTX train from Seoul to Busan was derailed yesterday after a wheel went off the rails between Dongdaegu and Shinkyungju stations, causing delays in both directions. Blinken arrives in Israel for Gaza ceasefire talks. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Israel in his latest effort to push for a ceasefire and hostage-related release deal in Gaza. And these are today's headlines. Let's say hi to Haley first before we get into Busan updates. Good morning.
Good
I
morning.
hope you had a good weekend.
I did. I woke up on Saturday with this burst of energy and went hiking. I know. I was
just like,
the
my
entire
eyes
time.
said,
I know. I was
why?
like, what did you do with Haley? Did you? I was like, I don't know. I
So
just
hot.
did. And I think I'm getting old. I don't know. I was like, I was like, should I go hiking? That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, no, there was a heat wave. I'm like, that sounds like
Did
a
you
good
wear
idea.
your full regalia gear?
I wore it
Head to toe?
I wore head to toe, not my clothes, because I don't have any hiking appropriate clothing. So I wore like my sister's hat, like the whole like the wide brimmed hat. I wore my mom's hiking boots because I don't have hiking boots. Yeah. So that was,
Okay. So, hey, speaking of gear, in high school, did you go to like a co-ed school? Did you go to an all-girls school?
Well, because I went to a public school in the States, it was definitely co-ed, and we
What did you wear?
not wear uniforms. Well, okay, here's the thing. Fashion, I know fashion comes back, but I'm like, is fashion seriously doing a full circle? Because I did wear cargo pants and like capris when
so back.
I was in high school, and I was like, why are these back?
Cargo pants are so back.
They're so back. And then I tried putting them on, and then I tried going to work in them, and my mom was like, It's like, nope. She's like, you do not look good. I'm like, that's rude. But you're also not wrong. So I went and changed.
I see. Yeah, cargo pants are like all the
They're
rage
so
right
back.
now.
And kids look so cute wearing them, but I'm like, I think I used to look, that cute when I too was 17 once upon a time, but apparently I can't pull them off anymore.
I'm sure you can. But let's jump to our first update. Busan City has unveiled its plans for the airport city in Gadokdo, right?
Right. So, of course, Gadokdo is getting a new airport due to open in 2029. But not only that, the entire area around it is going to be this air city, specifically the Eurasia Gate Air City. So the plans for this has been unveiled. They have been unveiled by Busan City, encompassing 3 separate zones across some 98.8 million square meters of land. So they'll be called Nulcha, Tumun, and Cheonsong. So the Nulcha zone will be the logistics area.
Okay.
The Cheonsong area will be kind of the natural tourism and vacation site. And the final Tumun zone will be a hub for a renewable energy complex. So the city will apply for a free economic zone designation, which will kind of open up all of these deregulation steps with the Ministry of the Trade, Industry, and Energy by the end of this year.
Okay.
So the head of the city's airport headquarters team said that this airport city or air city, it's an important cornerstone in Busan, becoming a global hub city in conjunction with a new airport.
Right. So exciting to hear about like any details of the upcoming new airport. Next up, the authorities are investigating a case of massive amounts of cocaine found in a cargo ship at Busan Newport.
Right, and we keep hearing these stories, kind of over and over again, and it is very much concerning. So a maintenance worker found of a freezer container ship found an undisclosed amount of cocaine and called it into the authorities. So the ship apparently belongs to a company located in Panama. The amount is not disclosed, but apparently it's said to be a massive supply. So the customs authorities passed the case on to the prosecution, and they're currently investigating it. So this actually isn't the first time, even this year, that cocaine has been found at Busan Newport.
Right.
So back in, I believe, January earlier this year, some 33 kilos of cocaine that was found in an American cargo ship. That case from earlier this year turned out to have been kind of a delivery mishap. It was from Latin America headed to Morocco, but it kind of got left in the ship that when it was docked in Busan, and just no one ever picked it up.
Right.
So given this past history, the authorities are looking into all possibilities, including this also having been a delivery mistake, or was it intended for a Korean destination, which honestly would be a bigger concern.
Yes. I mean, regardless of
Right.
that amount, all the bricks of like cocaine being found.
Right.
I feel like, where are we?
I know.
It's
I'm like,
Twilight
is this a
Zone.
movie? Yeah.
I know. All right. This has officially been the worst year for toxic jellyfish,
We
right?
keep breaking this like summertime record. We are on
Yes.
path to breaking another tropical night record. But at least in terms of jellyfish, the number of toxic Nomura's jellyfish found off the waters of South Korea has reached the highest. And that's according to the National Institute of Fisheries and Science. They said it has found 108 Nomura's jellyfish per every hectare of ocean water. And that is the highest since observation and counting began back in 2015. So 108, how bad is it? Well, normally we see 20 to 40 per hectare. So yeah, quite a bit. And last year, that figure was down to under 1 jellyfish for every hectare. So, I mean, last year was definitely an outlier in terms of a low, but then this year it has certainly spiked. And these aren't like the tiny jellyfish. These are huge. They're up to 2 meters. And they follow ocean currents from their home in East China Sea to Korea's South Sea and to the East Sea. And as Busan is right in between the South and East Seas, we have a lot of them. So they are highly toxic. And about half the fishermen who are out at sea monitoring the jellyfish, they have reported seeing them at least once in the last week. So there is an alert out for the seas of Busan. So whether you're fishing or swimming, please do be careful.
Indeed. All right, for a final bit, a major indie game festival took place in Busan, right?
Right. So just a wrap up from the weekend's events. This was the 10th year for the Indie Game Festival and was also the biggest run yet, with 245 works featured from 27 countries. So 23 local game companies also participated, which is also the highest figure ever. So the event featured some meet and greets for industry officials and open events for the public. Although you can still participate because the online festival is still ongoing, will last through the end of the month. So Busan City has a larger picture. It has been solidifying its position as kind of the major esports hub, ranging from these smaller indie game festivals to hosting these larger World Cup type events.
Right. So thank you for all the updates for now. We'll check in with you with news in just a little bit, Haley. Now back to you, the waivers. We're talking about school. Middle school, high school. Did you go to a co-ed type of school, meaning mixed, girls, boys together? Or did you go to like an all girls, all boys school? Did you wear uniforms? So jealous because I didn't wear one. And if you didn't wear a uniform like Haley and I, what did you usually wear to school? You know, I hated waking up every morning and like deciding what to wear. So I was kind of jealous of my cousins who they complained though. They complained endlessly that they had to wear their uniform, but I was kind of jealous because you didn't really have to decide. You just wore the same thing every day. Anyhow, here is your traffic and weather for right now. It is now 7:16. Here's your traffic report. There was an accident on the Namhae Expressway, number 2, right by Sasang Interchange, in the direction of the Seoul-Busan Interchange. It's been cleared up, but there's still backup ensuing. It looks slow on the Dongseok overpass from Bumnaekgo ramp to the old Kaegum toll gate. Also congested on the Jungangdaero from Sojongcheon to Bugok intersection. It is currently 27 degrees Celsius under sunny skies. Ready for this? The daytime high will go up to 35 degrees Celsius. There are chances of showers in the afternoon and evening time. Temperatures are expected to go up to around 35 degrees across most of the country, so please stay hydrated wherever you are. This was your traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
It's now time for News Digest, and we're going to begin with our first story, checking in with the trainee doctors walkout. The government had sent out an additional call for a new batch of trainee doctors to start in the second half of the year, but apparently barely any takers, right?
Right. So attempt number 2 two
Yes.
was also, it was a near zero. So training hospitals had wrapped up round 2 of trainee doctors' calls. This time was for second through fourth year residents to start training in September. There are a total of 7,282 spots open across all 4 years nationwide. So the government logic had been that round 1 of trainee doctors' call-outs, they had such low response rates because of the short application period. And on top of that, peer pressure. But even with this extension, major Big 5 hospitals in Seoul apparently had near zero applicants. So with this major gap, the government is likely going to pick up speed on its hospital structural reform that would basically kind of weigh down the dependence on trainee doctors, interns, and residents to add PA, physicians, assistant nurses. And some hospitals are currently looking to hire full-time certified doctors in place of residents.
Yes. Well, in that vein, we've heard that patients have had trouble getting admitted to hospitals because of the trainee doctors walkout. And I hear you have numbers corroborating this.
Right. So we've definitely heard of anecdotal evidence, but the number of patients that have been kind of bounced around to other hospitals from these larger general hospitals.
Yes.
That figure has that has increased this year compared to the last year. So according to the Ministry of Health data on transfers from these upper level general hospitals, 289,000 cases happened between February and May of this year. And that is, of course, the period of the trainee doctors walkout. And that is a 17% increase from the same period last year. And by the way, keep in mind that this isn't emergency cases. This is people, it includes emergency cases, but also patients that have been admitted or that have gone into walk-ins, but have had to go to other hospitals.
I see.
So that means when patients visited larger general hospitals, usually they're university hospitals, more of them were transferred to smaller general hospitals or local clinics for various reasons. So looking at this locally, Busan National University Hospital, they've had to send 5,661 patients to other smaller institutions, and that is a 2.6 times higher than the same period last year. And then for emergency cases, so for ambulances, there were 2,326 rerouting of these ambulances.
Yes.
Most just once, meaning patients just had to go from one hospital to another. But there were even 17 cases that have been rerouted 4 times. Right. So, and this actually happened more often in bigger cities, with a third of such ambulances reroutings happening just in the capital area alone. And this also leads to tragedies, unfortunate cases of patients having died on the road looking for hospitals to take them since the doctors walk out. So, for instance, there was a man in his 70s who was in a car accident, but he couldn't find a hospital to take him for emergency surgery. So, after an hour and 20 minutes on the road, he died inside a hospital without treatment. And then in Kimhae, there was a case recently where a cargo truck driver was crushed by this concrete pillar. He was bounced from 10 different hospitals and died on the road. So the Ministry of Health, they have a hotline for damages from the walkout, and they've received almost 850 reports, about half of them pertaining to delayed surgeries, 128 cases of treatment refusals. And lastly, a man on basic welfare was found passed out on the streets recently from heat stroke. He was refused treatment from 14 local hospitals and died. So certainly something that should really never happen, but it is unfortunately happening.
Yes. And we hear about these very extreme cases, but you never know. That could be
It could happen to anyone.
Anybody. Right. All right. That's the status. We're going to move on. Last week, the World Health Organization, WHO, declared Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, a public health emergency of international concern for the second time in 2 years. So what has changed to warrant this?
Right. So why this fake announcement number 2? Well, an outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo that has spread to other countries. And this time, this is key, with a more contagious variant.
Right.
So the first Mpox case, or the first Mpox public health emergency of international concern, this was, of course, formerly known as monkeypox, 원숭이 두창. It carries flu-like symptoms, including fever, chills, muscle aches, and they're followed by this kind of a telltale rash.
Yes.
That it turns into blisters and with fluid. Well, 34 countries in Africa are either reporting infections or considered to be at high risk, according to the African Centers for Disease Control. So there are broadly two types of Mpox, and these are known as clade. So just think of them as types. Clade 1 was once known as the Congo Basin clade, clade 2 as the West African clade. Both can be fatal, but clade 1 has historically had a higher fatality rate.
Yes.
So an offshoot of clade 1, it's called clade 1b, that's been detected in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo and has since been confirmed in Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. And scientists are saying that this is the variant that's played a role in its spreading across not only Africa, but other continents.
I see.
So this has been typically spread by people eating infected bushmeat. Also, it can spread from person to person, often via sexual contact, although it has been known to spread via just other physical and face-to-face contact or using contaminated bedding or even towels.
Okay, so how is South Korea responding to this crisis?
Right. So the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency deemed that the domestic situation is currently within a manageable level. So therefore, it is not going to issue another crisis level, at least just yet, but it is strengthening monitoring and testing. So there will be quarantine authorities placed at gates of major flights and airports, and they'll also encourage people who have symptoms to report themselves. So there have been a total of 10 Mpox cases this year in Korea. This is a big drop from 151 from last year. All of the cases from this year, they've been men in their 20s through 40s, 9 domestic infections and 1 overseas. So the KDCA also has some 20,000 doses of Mpox vaccine and about 500 doses of Mpox treatments.
I see. So thanks for letting us know about the latest on Mpox. Lastly, Thailand now has its youngest prime minister in history, but her tenure comes with, I guess we'll say, decades of political baggage.
Right. So we started this story last week where Thailand's very powerful constitutional court, they basically removed the sitting prime minister for violating the constitution for a cabinet appointment. Well, now to replace him comes the youngest prime minister and only the second ever female prime minister for the country. And this is Paetongtarn Shinawatra.
Oh.
So Paetongtarn Shinawatra, that name, Shinawatra, it's the 4th Shinawatra in the Prime Minister's office. She's the daughter of a very powerful former Prime Minister, Thaksin Shinawatra, who, by the way, just returned to the country after 15 years in exile. The other two were her aunt, who was the first female Prime Minister, and then her other aunt's husband. So, yeah. Big family dynasty. So Paetongtarn Shinawatra, she led her party, Pheu Thai Party, in the general election. She only entered politics just 3 years ago. She used to work for her family's hotel empire, but she did prove herself a popular campaigner. She is, though, very much in her father's shadow, herself having claimed to be a daddy's girl during one of the campaign events. And, some fear that her tenure as prime minister may be under the influence of her powerful father.
Yes.
So Mr. Thaksin's return to Thailand was under the condition that he would keep a low profile. So he's at least not in the official spotlight. But some have already accused Thaksin of being involved in the cabinet appointment that led to the downfall of the former prime minister. So some controversies already in place. And then also it's unclear if his daughter Paetongtarn's government will be successful because, she currently has a 6% approval rating.
6%?
Six.
Okay,
it's a
sorry.
single digit. And then her family has faced opposition from the pro-royalist conservatives and the military. By the way, the 2 previous Shinawatra governments, including her father's, they were deposed in military coups. So, yeah. So seemingly peaceful in Thailand, but there's been a lot of turmoil going on there politically.
Indeed. Well, thanks for going over all the hot news. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
All right, it is time to get to, I'm going to just read one message. JB, who says, about the uniform, fully dark green uniform like 공익요원. So that's what his uniform was like. We're going to get to our first song. This is A Bad Case of Loving You by Robert Palmer. Welcome back, everybody. So we are talking about COVID. And that is our top story for today as the country is in the midst of a summertime wave. And this coincides with the end of summer vacation with some students already back in school. So there are no quarantine or mask mandates, but the Education Ministry recommends students who have COVID to stay at home and return to school the day after their symptoms go away. Students who exhibit symptoms like high fever and respiratory symptoms are recommended to stay home and recover. Their absences will be excused for this duration. When you have COVID, you are advised to wear a mask, refrain from going out and meeting people unless it is absolutely necessary. The Education Ministry will work with local offices to hold training for students and faculty and send notices to parents right after school starts. So I know that for some schools that has already begun, and I know some of the parents out there are celebrating that their kids are back in school. So back to our text topic. It's all about school today. Middle school, high school. Was it co-ed? Was it an all girls or all boys middle school or high school? What did your school uniform look like? And if you didn't have a uniform, what did you usually wear to school? 자, 여러분은 남중 남고, 여중 여고, 아니면 남녀 공학이었는지, 그리고 또 내 학창 시절 교복은 어떻게 생겼는지. 아, 그리고 요즘에는 옛날에도 그랬나요? 그 약간 주름 있는데 주름이 있으면 이렇게 수선집이라고 하나요? 가서 이렇게 박았나요? 아니면 수선해서 이렇게, 요즘 애들 많이 그러던데요. 이렇게 조금 짧게 이렇게 수선 많이 하고 그 플리트, 그 주름 있는 걸 이렇게 박아서 조금 더 이렇게 딱 달라붙게 아니면 짧게 하는데 원래는 규칙에서 하면 안 되잖아요. You're not supposed to do it, but I do see many students around me that I kind of feel like, 치마 조금만 내렸어. Like, it's too short. Like, 다 보일 것 같아요. Like, or like, even for the boys though. 남자 그 바지도 있잖아요. 굉장히 slim하게. Like they like to tailor it so it's really, really, really slim and like really fitting. Sometimes I feel like they're going to burst out of their pants, but it's like really, really tight. That's how they like to wear their pants, and the girls like really short skirts. So tell me all about your uniforms. Tommy, my school, it was black suit, white shirt, and everybody had a short sports style haircut. 스포츠 컷이라고 하지 않아요. 그 굉장히 짧은 like a buzz cut, right? It was just like Men in Black in a good way. Truly looked like gangsters. Kind of like in like the old Korean, I guess like movies or like dramas, like back in the day. I can kind of imagine it definitely. So I wish I lived in Korea during those days. I always look at like the Korean dramas and think, I wish I wore the uniform. Looking at Leslie's uniform, Leslie did not likewise for me, she did not go to a private school. She went to a public co-ed high school in the late 80s, early 90s. There were a lot of jeans and t-shirts and flannel and dresses paired with leggings, all of which are coming back into style. Yeah, I remember a lot of that too. Lots of leggings and stuff. JB, 우리 때는 아랫단 통을 좁게 하는 게 유행. Like the slim look at the bottom. 이건 나 너무 싫었어. 피디님새 너무 싫었대요, 개인적으로. That's her personal thing. She didn't like it. But I do remember, like people my age, like I've heard the guys how they would explain to me how they would fold it a certain way. 어떻게 접는 것까지 저한테 보여준 적이 있는데요. Or how they would like fold it a certain way and roll them up. Anyhow, we'll hear more about your uniform stories in just a little bit. Here's your hot clip for Monday. Today's hot clip is all about those two U.S. astronauts that, I don't know, what word do I use? I will use the word stuck, stranded, or just, I don't even know what verb to use. They're in space. And here's a clip from ABC News.
And NASA is weighing all options and opinions as it decides whether it will keep 2 astronauts in space until next year, rather than flying the troubled Boeing Starliner back to Earth from the International Space Station. Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams could catch a ride on the next SpaceX flight there. But that option would keep them orbiting the Earth until February. Starliner's first test pilots thought they'd be away for 8 days when they launched in June. They knew that it could be much longer, though. But the trip was marred by thruster failures and helium leaks, raising doubts about its ability to return to Earth safely. So let's go ahead and bring in ABC News contributor and retired NASA astronaut, my dear friend Katie Coleman here, who's been to space many times now. So Katie, Boeing maintains that the Starliner could still safely bring the astronauts home, but NASA officials said that they're analyzing more data before making that decision. What do we know about the timeline here?
Well, there's not exactly a rush in terms of, nothing is life-threatening. It's more just the traffic pattern at the space station. They only have so many places to dock there. I made you a little model, Geo. Where this is the space station, there's already things, here, here, here. And there's only 3 places to dock, and they're full. And so the Boeing has to leave in order for the next crew to come up. And there's also a question of supply ships coming up and down. So it's more just starting to look at the risk of, do we need to learn more? Have we learned enough about the thrusters to decide that the propulsion system is safe? And I don't get the feeling that they're dragging their feet. I really like what I hear about the process that they've been going through, listening to different voices, even folks that do missions from that are on spacecraft with the same thrusters going to Mars and millions of miles away.
And you just mentioned, Katie, those supply ships. So a lot of people might be wondering, hey, is there enough food? Is there enough water on board? You spent quite a bit of time there on the International Space Station. So what do you say?
It really depends who you're there with, okay? Some people eat a lot. I'm just teasing. But they've been measuring all that, and it is a sort of a game of we've got more people up there. They're doing a lot more work, but they are eating more. But certainly, even before they left, they knew how much food and water and supplies there were. And so they're monitoring that. I wouldn't say that's the critical situation at this point.
So as you heard in that clip, you know what the thing is? I did a little bit of digging, and some people might say, well, why can't they come back on not the Boeing aircraft, but like a different one, like SpaceX? The thing is that their spacesuits are so particular that they can't come back on the SpaceX. Their spacesuits are for the Boeing spacecraft. So if they were to come back on another type of spacecraft, they would have to get that particular spacesuit for another spacecraft. It's very complicated. So it looks like they're going to be there for maybe a few more months. And this was your hot clip for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
Let's welcome my twin into the studio. For those of you who are viewing us and listening to us on YouTube, Michael's in the studio.
Good
And
morning.
he and I are twinning today.
Yes.
Do you like the black?
Yeah,
color.
those watching us on YouTube, you can see us.
We're twinning. Great minds think
matching.
alike.
Yes, exactly,
Yes.
exactly. 통했어요.
네. So I was asking, you have a very unique 학창 시절 where you took the 검정고시?
Yeah.
So I was asking you, I thought you were kidding when I said, did you wear uniform? And you're like, no, I skipped middle and high school. I was like, really?
Yeah, I mean, but I regret it sometimes choosing to do the 검정고시 because I don't have that good memories or 추억 that
of socially, the friends.
making friends and doing all kinds of stuff together. So
And then you did elementary school in the States, right? So you were like, ooh, you have a very unique upbringing.
yeah, strange, weird.
I kind of I really feel like, because I did all my schooling in the States, so it's like when I hear like my cousins with the 교복, like every time I came to visit, I would try on my cousin's uniform, and I would be like, can I wear it out? She'd be looking at me like, What's
Why?
wrong with you? She's like, can I try on your ripped jeans? Like, like, what's wrong with you?
But I think it's for foreigners, 교복 is something unfamiliar, right? Because you don't wear 교복 in the States.
Unless you go to a private school.
Yeah, unless you go to
or a
private
Catholic
school.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, for me though, it's like I always wanted to.
Yeah,
So
it's like me watching Japanese
Yes.
anime, for
Yes.
example, and like they're all wearing that 교복 of some kind. It looks beautiful.
I like it just the fact that like you don't have to decide what to wear in the morning. You're like
Oh, yeah, that makes
like
sense.
the uniform and like maybe like the socks you're wearing or maybe the tennis shoes. That's about it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we're gonna jump into Showbiz Buzz. And by the way, welcome back. I'm glad you're back
you.
and you're safe. And so, how was your trip to Germany?
Yeah, I actually got back just yesterday, so I'm still going through the jet lag. I'm going to talk about my German story.
Okay.
But just to give our listeners a short update on some big event.
Sure.
Alain Delon, he's a French actor. Very famous in the 1960s, and sources said that he passed away just this Sunday at the age of 88. He is very famous for his appearance in the 1960s, so-called the new wave film, including Purple Noon, Les Samurai, and The Swimming Pool, and more. But ever since he suffered from a stroke in 2019,
Yes.
he wasn't able to make the appearance after that. But his image as a successful actor, and many of his friends called him the two-headed eagle because he was seen as both as a successful actor but also as a perpetrator of domestic violence and a person who engaged in a lot of controversial affairs. Yeah, but in the end though, Alain Delon will be remembered as one of the most successful actors in the 1960s, and with that I pay tribute to his passing.
Yes, and especially here in Korea, quite popular here during that era, right? I mean,
exactly.
I remember my mom talking about him, and then I didn't know who he was, and I was like, "Who is this Alain Delon or whatever?" She kept on saying, right? But now, he was a legend of that era.
He created
so.
history, and we
Yes,
have to, recognize and accept that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So, anyways, with that update, I'm just going to go back to my adventure in Germany. So I went to Germany for the last whole week
Yes.
for this project that I call the Tricolor Project. It was a concert tour that I did in Münster, Essen, and Dortmund. So 3 cities in Germany. It's a project that combined the 3 elements of music and ballet and stories, showcasing original classical compositions that I wrote.
Sure.
Inspired by Korean folktale. The music focused on the interesting scenes of Korean folktales.
Yes.
So, for example, one of the music would be titled 10 minutes before the fairy gets her wing clothes stolen by a woodcutter. So that's a long title.
Yes.
But think about the story. You know the story behind 선녀와 나무꾼, right? And we all know, and the 선녀, the fairy, doesn't know that her clothes is going to get stolen
Right.
by a woodcutter.
Right.
So, for example, the music would depict that scene 10 minutes before the 선녀's clothes get stolen. She doesn't know.
Right.
So it's a completely peaceful music, but we all know that actually there is going to be a scary part after. So it's actually a scary music. Why don't we take a listen to that? I have a small clip from that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, live
Okay.
recording from Germany.
Okay, here we go. So this was created by you, this music?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Wow.
And, the musicians performed it. It turned out to be really, really great. With
Oh my goodness, I was like so
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah,
And like
you can.
surprised, yes.
We'll be publishing this album pretty soon, so this is a little heads up that I revealed, especially for BFM
Yes.
waivers.
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, it depicts that peaceful scene. It's peaceful, but it's
peaceful.
not. But it's not.
But you hear the little bit of like the minor chords, like you hear like the dissonance. I hear it.
And
Yes.
I performed this music with the ballet, and with the ballet, the message gets even more clear. You know, so I think that kind of I guess concept was an interesting concept.
Yes.
And this project was made possible through a voluntary participation of musicians, dancers, and the production team. Yeah. So how it all began was last year I was working with a classical ensemble in Korea, and I published a mini album with them
Yes.
that contained 3 of my original compositions
Sure.
inspired by Korean folktale. And then I got into contact with a Korean pianist living in Germany, and we began discussing this possibility of writing more pieces
I see.
based on Korean folktale to introduce them in Germany.
Sure, sure.
So just wanted to point out that it's very important that this project was partly funded by Busan City's World Class Project, but primarily it was made possible through voluntary participation by musicians and performers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. And we're getting so many comments saying it, like, 한 걸음 waver, who I actually first time checking in with us saying how
Hello.
nice it is.
Nice to meet you.
And people are saying like, wow, is it available like on Melteng, the music chart? Like how nice it is.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's going to be published. And one thing on that note, I do have to mention this as well. Our second concert took place in Essen. That's a city in the northwest side of Germany, and we did it at the Essen Public Library.
Sure.
So that's the biggest library in the city. And what happened there was after the concert, the senior librarian came to us and gave us an offer to register our live recording album
Yes.
of the Tricolor Project for permanent listing on the library. So what that means is even after all of us are dead, you'd
So
be
morbid.
you'd still be able to listen to our music at the SN Public Library. And this is, I think, probably the biggest
That's the biggest
accomplishment that we were
that's
able
the
to
biggest
achieve.
compliment. Like
Yeah.
right there, she's like, you know what? It's gonna be there.
Yeah. It's already up there, and the album is going to get published online as well. So I'll let you know later when that happens. But if you want to take a listen right away, right now, then you can fly over to Essen and find our CDs there.
Well, thank you for sharing about your project with our waivers. I feel like we're like in the know, like we're so special. So thank you, and of course, yes. So congratulations on that. And like the members of the Tricolor Project, you mentioned they came on a voluntary basis. So do you think that this whole idea of volunteerism and voluntarism is important when it comes to things like art and culture? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, we have this image in our head sometimes of like starving artists.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, right?
It is a tough issue, and every time we talk about this, it never ends. It's a long time debate.
Yes.
But I still do think voluntarism is important. But I'm not saying, I do have to emphasize that I'm not saying this to encourage, the so-called 열정페이 or unpaid labor. I'm not saying that. Or
No,
I don't want to encourage people that artists should starve. I'm not saying that. But voluntarism should be seen as something like a form of investment that each of us choose to make, right?
Investment.
So, yeah. So making an investment in something means that you're getting something out of it. You're earning something in return for your investment. It may not be money necessarily, when it comes to the outcome, but you'll still be getting your own portfolio, and
something.
and an opportunity to connect with new people and the experience to perform in the home of classical music, which is Germany.
Sure.
And all of that, worked as a great outcome for all of the members who participate in this Tricolor project, because the members of the Tricolor Project weren't students at all. They are all accomplished professional musicians
Right.
and performers.
Sure.
But they were still willing to participate in this on a voluntary basis because they know what they can get out of this. So being able to make this work, bringing people together and actually holding, 3 concerts in various locations in Germany, definitely gave all of us the strength and confidence to do more projects on an international scale. So you don't get to do this often. It's like, I do a lot of concerts here in South Korea,
Sure.
but being able to do something like that on an international scale, you need confidence.
Yes,
And I
yes,
think
yes.
this was a good starting point on that.
너무 멋지세요. I mean, sincerely, like, just that little snippet and just hearing about not just your work, your endeavors, but the volunteerism from all the performers and the musicians to make this project a success.
Yeah, and maybe next week I could bring more albums here, and you can help us
here.
get permanently listed at BMFM.
Yes, maybe so.
Maybe or maybe
so.
not.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, but thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. And we,
감사합니다.
of course, look forward to hearing more about your future projects.
Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, 감사합니다.
Thank you. Well, we're going to call it a wrap for today. And we look forward to speaking to you next week. And, of course, get some rest.
Yes, I need it. I need it.
Yes. Okay. So I know everybody's like saying, "Oh, Michael 멋지네요," and then like everybody is also commenting, "Yes, I know we're twinning. We mentioned it." Yes, of our. 그리고 사파리 이미지. 온데간데 없습니다. Yes, 없어요 이제. 우리는 오늘 이제 uniform. They're saying we're wearing our own uniform. Yes, we're twinning today uniform.
Yeah, I think 성공했습니다 이제.
네,
I
이제
got it.
성공했습니다.
Yeah.
We've graduated.
I made the transition. Yes.
All right, how about this song, Michael, for our final one? Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
It's great. Sounds great.
All right.
Amazing.
All right. So this is going to be our final song for hour number 1. I'll be back at 8.
탈취 플러스. 닦고 닦고 또 닦은 수건은 가운데에서 냄새가.
그래서 모서리로 닦아요.
새로운 다운이는 삶은 것 같은 탈취 효과로 30번 닦아도 계속
상쾌해.
다운이 삶은 탈취 플러스.
부산의 축제 어디까지 즐겨보셨나요? 과거와 현재, 미래가 공존하는 항구도시 부산. 이곳 부산은 계절을 물들이는 다양한 축제로 늘 풍성합니다. 봄의 시작을 알리는 봄.
띠저우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, B&K 부산은행과 함께합니다.
부산글로벌도시재단 대표이사 전용우입니다. 부산은 물류, 금융, 영상, 관광, 첨단산업 등 핵심 분야에서 또 한 번의 도약을 준비하고 있습니다. 글로벌 허브도시 부산의 비전은 부산을 넘어 대한민국의 균형 발전을 촉진할 새로운 계기가 될 것입니다. 부산 글로벌 도시재단은 세계 시민을 연결하는 네트워크로 도시 외교의 중추적 역할을 담당하고 글로벌 부산의 미디어 플랫폼인 부산 영어 방송을 통해 영어하기 편한 도시 부산을 만들고 있습니다. 글로벌 허브 도시 부산, 그 중심에 부산 글로벌 도시재단이 있습니다.
Busan Global City Foundation leads the Global Hub City Busan.
오늘은 저 강남과 함께 멋진 우리 이웃들 한번 만나볼까요?
바쁘니까 부지런히 해야죠.
월급날이 제일 기뻐요. 한국의 흥에 반해서 트로트 가수가 됐습니다.
다 함께 내일을 만들어가는 다문화 이주 배경 이웃들. 우리는 모두 우리입니다. 공익광고협의회.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning, Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded.
What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It is now 8 o'clock. This is News Highlights. Lee Jae-myung reelected DP chair in landslide victory. Former Democratic Party or DP chairman Lee Jae-myung won his second term as party chief with a record high vote share during yesterday's national convention. He won 85.4% of the votes from registered party members in the 17 rounds of primaries that wrapped up yesterday, claiming a landslide victory over former Interior Minister Kim Doo-kwon. Lee now becomes the second DP chief to serve 2 consecutive terms, following former President Kim Dae-jung. Leaders of South Korea, U.S., and Japan reaffirmed commitment to security cooperation. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, U.S. President Joe Biden, and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida issued a joint statement celebrating progress in their trilateral security cooperation and vowed to bolster their ties across a broad range of areas. The leaders highlighted key accomplishments in security areas, including the launch of the trilateral multi-domain exercise Freedom Edge in June, and the signing of a new trilateral security cooperation framework last month. The leaders also recognized the efforts of a trilateral working group in disrupting North Korea's funding of weapons of mass destruction programs through cybercrime and other illicit means. Number of economically inactive youth by choice hit record high in July. The number of South Korean youth opting to remain economically inactive without a specific reason set a new record in July amid economic uncertainties and high job competition. The number of such individuals aged 15 to 29 reached 443,000 last month, an increase of 42,000 from a year earlier, according to Statistics Korea. The report showed that 75.6% of such young individuals expressed no desire to search for jobs, while others replied that they were not looking for work because they believed that there were no suitable positions available. KTX back on schedule after derailment causes massive delays. A KTX train from Seoul to Busan was derailed yesterday after a wheel went off the rails between Dongdaegu and Shinkyungju stations, causing massive delays in both directions. Korail allowed for ticket holders to board the trail without seats, and the trains were filled to the brim with people trying to get home on the last day of the Liberation Day holiday. An emergency team has completed the repairs, and KTX trains have begun their normal operations for both directions with the first train of the morning. Blinken arrives in Israel for Gaza ceasefire talks. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Israel for his 10th visit to the enclave in his latest effort to push for a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza. The U.S. and Israel have expressed optimism about a deal since talks resumed in Doha last week, but Hamas says suggestions of progress are an illusion. There are differences over whether Israeli troops will fully withdraw from the Gaza Strip. Attempts for a breakthrough comes as at least 9 Palestinians have been killed and dozens wounded after more Israeli air attacks targeting central Gaza. And this was News Highlights. It is time for Waggle Waggle. Haley's back in the studio.
Hello, hello.
And by the way, for some of our listeners, we should not lie. 고수님, 내가 10년만 젊어도 학생인데? Really?
And I said 복학생?
Or 대학원생?
Sorry. Says we're like, well, we're not cyberbullying, but we're just full out in-person bullying.
We don't know how old he is.
Yeah.
We kind of do, but we don't. Okay. First issue. A middle school in Busan is under fire for what they showed to the students the day before Liberation Day.
This Liberation Day has been controversial. It shouldn't be, but it has been. So there's this middle school in Namgu apparently showed to the students a 12-minute history video from a YouTube channel the day before Gwangbokjeol on Liberation Day, which schools do. That's not the problem.
Okay.
However, that video said that Japan, during the occupation period, basically solved the problems for the people of Joseon or Korea in terms of their sanitation, medicine, and food. And the video called the situation back then backwards.
What?
Yeah. So the video also said that the colonial period introduced high school education and brought in the court system and served to strengthen individual rights. So basically kind of glorifying the effects of the colonial period and kind of, obscuring, the massive, massive human cost and, everything else that came. So the students apparently protested the video, saying that this comes off as justifying that forced occupation period. After they went home and told the parents also lodged strong complaints and that it teaches kids a very distorted and biased history.
Good of the students, though, for speaking up.
Very proud for middle school students. And the school has admitted to it and that was wrong of them and immediately apologized. And on the day after liberation, after the students came back, the school then showed them 3 other videos, including a video on independence fighters. So it turns out like there was no hidden agenda behind it, or at least they say. The school explained that this happened because the teacher who was in charge of selecting the video just kind of, he did so without watching the videos.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse, but and they explained that there was no directive from any chain of hierarchy further up to air the video because some people had suggested that. In any case, the education office is aware of it. They're going to launch an investigation.
Yes, and no excuses, please. All right, next up. In the heat, the 7 official beaches in Busan have been quite crowded with visitors, and some people seek, other less crowded spots, but this poses safety concerns.
Right, so unregistered or undesignated, so these unofficial beaches, in Korean we call them 비지정 해변, they have been gaining traction on social media.
Okay.
So, as I'm like mindlessly scrolling on my media feed, I keep seeing these not like promo, they're not paid promotions, but like with travel influencers showing, are you looking for like a snorkeling hotspot or like an uncrowded beach?
Yes.
And then this beautiful like lagoon. And I'm like, where is this? And it's these unregistered beaches. So there are apparently 10 such spots in Busan, and you do see quite a few people swimming there. But here's the thing. Well, because they're not official beaches, means there are no lifeguards, no lifesavers or life jackets that are on the scene.
Okay.
So, thus, the higher risks of accidents. And then on top of this, these beaches usually have bars and like drinking vendors, like the 포장마차 nearby. So, drunk swimming is common, and that's not good. So, last July, a young man in his 20s died at such spot in Yeongdo. And even this summer, a young man in his 20s, another man, got swept up in a riptide at a such beach in Jeju. He was put in a state of cardiac arrest, is still under treatment. A father in his 40s died while playing with his child at an undesignated beach in Yeongdeok. The child is okay because he or she was wearing a life jacket. The father, turns out, wasn't. So the thing is, it's not illegal, but it's not completely official or safe.
Right.
So Busan's Coast Guard, as well as different municipalities, they have become aware of it. They're going to strengthen monitoring and management over the beaches and ask people, adults even, to please wear life jackets.
Yes. So please be careful, everybody. I know it's still tempting. It's really hot.
Right.
People are still trying to cool off, but be careful. All right, next. Actor Matthew Perry, famous for his role in, Friends as Chandler Bing. We all know he died last year. We covered this. It shook, many people. It was a shock. And last week, U.S. authorities, they pressed charges against 5 people linked to his death.
Right. So he died last year from drowning. That was the apparent cause of death from in a hot tub in his home.
Yes.
But the charges made last week, they have to do with ketamine, which is an anesthetic that has some hallucinogenic effects. So here's the thing. Matthew Perry has always been very open about his decades-long struggle with addiction, even onto the set of Friends. But it had been known that at least people thought he was sober, at least prior to his death.
Yes.
However, during the autopsy, the coroner found high levels of ketamine. How high? Apparently, it was in the range that would be used for general anesthesia to put you completely under for surgery. So that led to this year-long investigation, which revealed this huge concerning underground ketamine dealing network, including someone dubbed the ketamine queen. So the arrests include this dealer, aka the ketamine queen, as well as doctors, fully licensed doctors, and Perry's assistant.
Yes.
So it turns out his live-in assistant, who has pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiring to distribute ketamine, and 2 others, including 1 doctor, they've also pled guilty. And and then the ketamine queen is Jasveen Sangha, allegedly provided drugs that led to his death. She's accused of having sold him some 50 vials of ketamine for about $11,000. And he says, prosecutors say that she has kind of this drug emporium out of her home, and she's a dealer for the rich and famous in Hollywood.
Well, the investigation also revealed some shocking realities involving doctors who allegedly took advantage of of the late actor.
Right. So in the text message exchange between the doctor and Perry's assistant, the doctor wrote, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay," unquote. And I mean, we're talking about a fully licensed medical doctor who's obviously taking advantage. So it turns out, vials of ketamine cost about $12. Matthew Perry paid $2,000. So they vastly overcharged him. And turns out it was the assistant with zero medical training injected Perry, even multiple times per day. There was a case where he literally froze up and he was unable to speak, but these, unlicensed treatments continued after that.
Okay.
So this is a tragedy of people exploiting a man whom during his lifetime he was really trying to go public and help people with his stories of addiction. Well, the U.S. Direct Enforcement Agency said that the arrest and the public details of the case coming out, they are likely to help others. So even in Perry's death.
So unfortunate, but thank you for telling us about this year-long investigation and the results thereof. All right, for our final story, we're going to take a look at the breakdown of our country's high schools.
Right, so we're getting, depending on kind of the age from our listeners, a lot of them did go to the gender-separate high schools or middle school, and that does reflect the changing trends in schools. So until the late 1990s, South Korea had a lot more separated girls and boys high schools and middle schools. But that is changing due to, number one, changed perceptions on gender equality, and second, just population.
Yes.
We don't have enough kids to separate them, it turns out. So according to the Korea Education Development Institute, there are now 2,379 high school nationwide. 65.8% are co-ed, so 남녀공학, and that ratio has been going up consistently.
Sure.
So let's compare that to 1999, when only 40% of schools were 공학, or co-ed.
Okay.
And even that ratio is higher in middle school. In middle school, in 1999, only 60% of the schools were co-ed. Now that's up to nearly 80%. So you would be hard-pressed to find a boys' middle school or a girls' middle school.
Sure.
So that's because in the late 90s, the government has decided to expand co-ed schools to expand gender equality in education. So now they're kind of also seen as a measure against the declining school population, student population, because if you're going to limit your applicants to your school to just boys or girls, you're massively disadvantaging yourself, the school, from, as they're struggling to get more students in the age of declining population. However, there have been some pushback, apparently with heightened competition, because if you have both genders, statistically, at that age, girls do tend to perform better academically. So there have been some issues of, especially because if you're doing early admission, your GPA, your school transcript is so important. So, right. So,
there have been anecdotal stories about like girls who, they use the so-called lottery or bang system.
Right.
Where girls, if
the random draw.
Random draw, they are assigned to like a girls' school.
Yeah.
They
move.
They move.
Yeah. They like legit move.
They move, so they are assigned to a co-ed school when they move to a new district. I mean, it's fierce.
It is very competitive.
Right. So
such as Korea.
For going over all the hot issues, and we'll check in with you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great day.
All right, and here is your updated traffic and weather. It is now time for your traffic and weather update. It's now 8:16. A cargo truck has broken down on Hwangryongdaero going toward Namcheon, right past the Hwangryong Tunnel. Please be aware of this. There's an accident on the Namhae Expressway from Deokjeon Interchange to Daejeon Interchange, and that's right after Deokjeon. And it's looking slow on Chungnyeoldaero from Minam intersection to Daesung intersection. Also, there's congestion on Byeongyonglo from Daeyeon ramp to the Gwangan Tunnel. As for the weather, it's currently 28 degrees already. It's going to go up to 35. However, there are chances of showers in the afternoon going on into the evening. Temperatures are expected to go up to around 35 across most of the country. So you know what to do. Make sure you have sunscreen and stay hydrated wherever you are. This was your traffic and weather. And this is Come Back Home by 서태지와 아이들.
내겐 점점 더 크게 더해갔던 이 사회를 탓하던 분노가 맞네 증오가 됐어 진실들은 사라졌어요 그때도 You must go back home 떠나가 말보다 따뜻한 You must go back home 거칠은 인생 속에 You must go back home 떠나가 말보다 따뜻한 You must go back home 나를 완성하기 위해서 다시 하나의 생명이 태어났고 또 다시 부모의 제압이 시작됐지 내겐 사랑이 전혀 없는 것 내 힘겨운 눈물이 말라버렸지 무모한 거품은 날리고 주위로 돌아봐 너 기다리고 있어 근데 이제 그만 됐어 나는 하늘을 날고 싶었어 아직 우린 젊기에 자는 미래가 이기에 자 이제 차가운 눈물은 닦고 Come back home You must go back home 떠나가 말보다 따뜻한 You must go back home 거칠은 인생 속에 You must go back home 떠나가 말보다 따뜻한 You must go back home 나를 완성하기 위해서 It's the place to be 터질 것 같은 내 십자가 날 미치게 만들 것 같았지만 난 이제 깨달았어 아서 날 사랑했다는 것을 You must go back home 떠나가
Welcome back, everybody. It's now time to go over a tech topic one last time before a special interview. So it was all about middle and high schools, whether you went to a co-ed school, an all-girls, all-boys school. What did your school uniform look like? Whether you even wore a uniform. And so for most of our listeners here in Korea, it seems like most of you did go to a school where they required some sort of uniform, at least in high school. And then in terms of, let's see, Lee Kelly says this, though. He says, school uniforms stifle individualism and freedom of expression in his humble opinion. So I said, I replied to him, true, but some days I hated deciding on what to wear. Right. And then for him, he said it was easy for him. Jeans and t-shirt, done. Yeah, easy for him, unless you had a mom like I did. My mom, it was a strictly no jeans kind of family. I don't know why she was like that. And the thing is, it's so ironic. Now she lives in jeans. But until I think third year of high school, maybe when I went to college, no jeans were allowed. She thought it was just too casual because we didn't wear uniforms to school, but she wanted me to always be on my toes at school. She didn't let me wear jeans. And that was a source of rebellion for me. Yeah, can you imagine being in the States and not being able to wear jeans? So I had to be creative, meaning AKA change clothes at school. And dear mom, if you're listening, yes, I did change clothes at school. Took, jeans in my backpack and change at school because how can you be a California kid and not have jeans, right? Anyhow, in terms of Tommy, he says that when he was in school, there was a lot of meme time from his corporal punishment. It was a thing. And it wasn't just in Korea. That was a common thing for many countries back in the day. Of course, that's a big no-no here. It's illegal. It's not acceptable anymore. But back in the day, it was very much a common thing, right? And yes, so I'm sure you have many more fond memories of when you guys were back in school. But for now, we're going to get to our special interview, and I will read more of your messages in a little bit. Here's our special interview. Ukraine's recent military incursion into Russia's Kursk region marks a significant turning point in the ongoing war, exposing critical weaknesses, it seems, in Russia's defenses. And this move has not only captured territory and prisoners, but also forced mass evacuations in Russian territory. So as Russia scrambles to respond, questions arise about the long-term implications of Ukraine's tactics and whether this could lead to further escalation. So many questions. Let's find out more from Professor Javed Ali. We have, he's an associate professor of practice at the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan and former senior U.S. government counterterrorism official. He's on air with us. Let's say hi to him. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So first of all, Professor, how has Ukraine's recent push into Russia's Kursk region changed the dynamics of this war? What do you think?
So that's a great question. And from everything that's come out on the media reporting side, it looks like it's had a short-term impact. It's, I think, allowed Ukraine to achieve multiple objectives, demonstrating some newfound proficiency in offensive capabilities and tactics, as opposed to just being on the defensive side, sort of trying to repel the Russian invasion the past 2.5 years. Part of it was probably designed as well to change the narrative about how the fight is going and demonstrate to Putin that Ukraine just won't sit back and continue to try to just repel the Russian advances, and also send a message to the Russian population that now their territory, physical territory, is at risk. And perhaps if they can hold the territory that they've sort of taken over now, maybe that's a bargaining chip at some point down the road. If there ever is a ceasefire or something that looks like ceasefire. And there are probably other objectives too, but I still think it's too early to say that this is going to change the tide of the war completely. And I think, if anything, it's more of a short-term development than a game-changing, long-term strategic development.
I see. Well, in your opinion, Professor, the Russian military, did it seem unprepared for this particular incursion?
Well, Ukrainians clearly did their homework in terms of collecting intelligence on the sort of the battlefield that was in front of them on the Russian side, and try if they were going to launch some kind of offensive operation, which they clearly did, then they wanted to pick a place that, in their estimation, they would not face as much of a robust defense. Probably also just the physical geography, because men and equipment had to cross open terrain, and that was a factor as well. And then having enough forces to catch the Russians off guard and sort of push as deep as they could, even though it's only a few miles into Russian territory in the southwest corner of Kursk. So those factors all probably played into the sort of operational design and planning. I also think it's interesting that apparently at no time up until the operation took place did the Ukrainians telegraph this or coordinate it with the Americans or NATO. So that also was surprising, that they wanted to make this very much their own operation and not share the details with the potential that it would get leaked or something would get compromised on the execution side of things. So, but here we are now a couple of weeks later, and yes, they have this small patch of territory in Kursk. Apparently there's been fighting a little further south in different regions, but that fighting apparently is much tougher than what transpired in the initial push into Kursk. And I think that's the reality of the war in Ukraine. I mean, Russia has captured 20% of Ukraine's territory.
Yes.
And the front is almost 600 miles long from north to south. So this is an enormous fight that Ukraine has on its hands. So even capturing this small sliver of territory in Kursk doesn't fundamentally change the equation of how each country is facing off against the other.
Right. Would you say that this incursion into Kursk, it's more of a symbolic win than a huge territorial win?
And I sort of tried to allude to that before. Is that
yes.
I do think it's symbolic, definitely, and it allows President Zelensky and senior Ukrainian military commanders to demonstrate to Russia that they can do things to Russia that Russia has been doing to them for the past couple of years. But they're also trying to operate under the rule of international law and not terrorize the civilian population and conduct these extrajudicial punishments and killings that we now know the Russians did, certainly in the first few months into their offensive into Ukraine. But just physically holding land in Russia, even though it's a small patch of territory, yes, I definitely think it's symbolic. But it's still too early to say whether that is going to. It's not going to completely put the Russian military on its back foot. The war, I still think, is for the most part a stalemate, and it's a terrible reality on every day. I mean, that doesn't get reported as much in the Western media here, but every day hundreds of soldiers or paramilitaries or regulars are dying or getting wounded on each side of that 600-mile front. And then there's the civilians who are getting affected with Russian attacks into Ukraine and perhaps vice versa. So the reality of this war is it's a brutal one. But I don't think that the Kursk operation is going to change the orientation of that anytime soon.
Well, it does seem, at least from, if you look at all the stories in the media, Professor, that a lot of the attention has been averted to what's happening in the Gaza region right now. And it's not to say one war or one area is more important than the other, but in terms of what you're saying, as hundreds of people are dying still in this area due to this war, What is it that we should know right now about what's happening? What's most important to keep in mind?
Well, I think from the U.S. perspective that, now I can't speak for the Biden administration, and I've been out of government for 6-7 years, but I would have to assume that this administration wants this war between Russia and Ukraine to end, because it's not good for regional stability. And clearly the human costs of this on both sides have been just staggering. Hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides, more on the Russian than on the Ukrainian side. Ukraine probably can't hold out and fight this way for another 1 to 2 years, just because the country's 10 times smaller in terms of its own population than Russia, and just the impact on sort of the global economy. I mean, there's all these reasons why I think from the U.S. perspective they would want this war to end, and same sort of equation on the war between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. But it's not, the U.S. is not in the position to dictate the terms either to Israel to end the war against Hamas or Ukraine, Russia on either side. So the U.S. will continue to exert as much influence as it can and try to use all the tools of national power that it has, to include diplomacy. But on both Israel, Gaza, and Russia, Ukraine, the U.S. can only do so much, and you need both sides in those two different conflicts to actually try to get to some resolution. Because until that happens, again, the daily reality is just going to be a terrible one. And we all know what is happening in Israel, Gaza. And again, even though there's not as much media coverage about Russia, Ukraine as much, it's still just as brutal, if not worse, because the soldiers and the troops fighting each other are just dying in numbers that are more similar to what, conflicts in World War I and World War II. And no one thought that in the 21st century we'd see two nation states fighting like that again. But that's sadly what it's become.
And do you think that a bit of fatigue is setting in even for the staunch supporters of Ukraine with, the countries, whether it's through economic support for Ukraine, morally, that fatigue is setting in?
That's a great question. Again, it's hard to kind of get to get a sense of, individually in every NATO country or every country in Europe, how it's playing out at a domestic political level. But at least from a NATO perspective, the coalition, there does seem to be a relatively high level of support still for Ukraine. And that's with respect to channeling weapons and equipment and supplies and intelligence and money and logistics and training, all the things that NATO has been doing for the past 2.5 years. But that support is probably also not unlimited. And I do think a big driver of a possible change will be the U.S. election here in November. I think if President Trump were to win, he would try to fundamentally alter the nature of that relationship, certainly between the U.S. and Ukraine, and if not more broadly between NATO and Ukraine. But I think if Vice President Harris wins, I think you'll see a continuation of the Biden administration's policy, with perhaps some changes on the margins. But I don't like the tone and rhetoric that she has been using about Ukraine doesn't seem to be that much different than the one that President Biden has been using these past couple of years. President Trump's rhetoric, though, is definitely different. And again, I think President Zelensky is also trying to sort of calculate how the impact of the U.S. elections in November impacts his country's ability to withstand this fighting with Russia for another couple of years. And again, if President Trump wins, does that mean that he needs to now think more carefully about a ceasefire? Because again, if U.S. support kind of starts it won't go to zero overnight, but if it starts to get smaller under a Trump administration, that might make the prospects for a ceasefire more realistic, but also much more unfavorable to Ukraine. Because again, Russia has already captured 20% of Ukrainian territory. So there's so many complicated dynamics between things that are going to happen here in the United States, just from political perspective, versus the actual fighting on the battlefield several thousand miles away.
And as we wrap up our discussion for today, Professor, have you heard anything in the back channels, any discussion for the prospect of negotiations, or do you think that it's more of just a digging in of heels, that it's going to continue status quo with what we have right now?
Yeah, that's another great question. And my sense, again, I may give a completely wrong answer on this because I'm not inside the minds of
Right.
Vladimir Putin or President Zelensky, but I actually think both leaders are kind of dug in because to try to capitulate now or sort of agree to a ceasefire, I think in their minds, the way they see this fight, that would be they would lose, or their countries would lose, or they've also got themselves wrapped up in this as well, in their kind of own, personas. So right now, I don't see a lot of momentum for a ceasefire. And if you're Vladimir Putin, now that you've got Russian territory invaded, the last thing you're going to think about is some kind of negotiation. If anything, he's probably even angrier now than he was a couple weeks ago. So I just don't see that being realistic right now. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong on that, but my sense is that both leaders are, for the most part, we're going to see more of the status quo over the next year or so.
Well, we will, of course, monitor the situation continuously. Thank you so much for joining us today, giving us your thoughts and expertise on this matter. Thank you, Professor.
All right, thank you.
This was Professor Javed Ali, and we talked about the war in Ukraine. And it seems like it's going to be drawn out, protracted, more of the same, as the professor seems to think. We will continue to follow this story, of course. This was your special interview. And we're going to get to our song, Train to London by Electric Light Orchestra.
It was 929 Backstreet, big city. The sun was going down, there was music all around, it felt so right. It was one of those nights when you feel the world stop turning. You were standing there was music in the air. It should have been away, but I knew I'd have to stay. Last train to London, just heading out. Last train to London, just leaving town. But I really want tonight to last forever. I really want to be with you. Let the music play on down the line tonight. It was one of those nights when you feel the fire is burning. Everybody was there, everybody to share. It was so right. There you were on your own, looking like you were the only one around. I had to be with you, nothing else that I could do. I should have been away, but I knew I'd have to stay. Last train to London, just heading out. Last train to London, just leaving town. But I really want tonight to last forever. I really want to be with you. Let the music play on down the line tonight. Underneath the starry sky, time was still, but eyes must really have rushed by. I didn't realize, but love was in your eyes. I really should have gone, but love won't allow. Last train to London, just heading out. Last train to London,
Get your local up-to-date news from Korea and abroad right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Stay tuned.
It is now time for Business Perspectives. We have Bobby the House.
Good morning, Catherine. How are you?
That orange, peachy orange looks so good on you.
Thank you. A little bright, for the sun. Last of the summer season, I hope.
Okay, so I want to ask you about your schooling, middle school, high school, co-ed, all boys school.
Co-ed. Co-ed throughout.
And did you wear a uniform?
For high school, no uniform. It was a private school, but no uniform, but a dress code.
Yeah, so tell us about the dress code. This was really interesting.
For guys, no jeans. Oh, for everybody, no jeans. For guys, slacks, collared shirts, and no gym shoes.
Like what you're wearing now, collared shirt.
Yeah. Just like this.
And then you had to keep your hair like a certain length. Right?
Nothing below
no
the collar.
gym shoes. No 운동화.
No gym shoes. Yeah, dress shoes. Dress shoes. Yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting because, like, in the wintertime, well, because, Chicago, there's a lot of snow.
So what do you do?
You just have to maybe get some galoshes, maybe. Do you know those things? Like those. Those little rubber things that you put over your dress shoes. Some people use those. Some people bring their dress shoes in a bag, and then they would wear their boots to school.
I see. And then
because a lot of people, because it was not a neighborhood school either. It was like commuted.
Oh, you had to commute. You had to take a bus?
Bus, train, bus.
Oh my, bus, train, bus.
Like an hour and a half. Yeah.
That's far.
Yeah, it was far.
But your parents wanted to send you to a good school?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't.
So you're talking one way is an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, developed some grit, I guess.
Apparently, you hear back in the day, my dad used to always tell me I walked 3 hours and 10 kilometers in snow to get to school.
So I couldn't complain because I had the luxury of public transportation, right? They had to walk to school, so I couldn't say anything.
I went over a mountain, and then I found out later, when I moved to Seoul, I looked at his address. It's like 종로유가. I'm like, 종로유가, that's middle of Seoul. He lied. He lied. I was like, that's not mountainous. That's middle of Seoul.
It worked.
Yeah, okay. Anyhow, let's dive into our topic today.
All right, so this week, spotlight a new industry. Esports. So, because something recently caught my attention. I was reading about the first Esports World Cup. It's happening right now in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
So I was like, holy cow, right? I was like, it's a new industry. I mean, look how big this thing is. So this is a new industry for me.
Yes.
Right? And I'm not a gamer, have never been a gamer.
Really?
The last time I went game consoles, right? The last time was probably in college where I played Sega Genesis.
And you can say it because they don't make those anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Atari 2600, that's my generation. So anyways, but living here in South Korea for the past 5 years, it really caught my attention, the popularity of esports.
Really popular.
Yeah, and even here in Busan, because we have the annual G-Star.
Yes,
huge. Yeah, the global gaming conference here every fall.
Yes.
Right, and also, last fall, there was the League of Legends World Championship hosted by South Korea.
Yeah.
And a good part of the games up front were here hosted in Busan at
That's
Expo,
right. Right.
But my eyes were open because so many international folks were in town last fall as spectators of this tournament.
True. I mean, I'm not a huge gamer either, but it's a huge industry. We can't deny that.
You cannot deny it.
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of attention, a lot of momentum in this space. So just wanted to highlight it. So I wanted to take a step back and provide a little background and history. So competitive video gaming at a professional level has been growing year after year since the late 70s and early 80s.
What was in back then?
I had to do some research here. So first known competitive gaming event
was
held at Stanford University in 1972 for a game called Space War.
Space War?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, Space Invaders.
Thank
I've heard
goodness.
Of, but
We're not that old, right? Okay.
But then it was in the late 90s and early 2000s where esports began to gain significant traction.
Yes.
Right? Well, factors here. High-speed internet, big play, big supporter, big infrastructure, right? Also, popularity of games like StarCraft or Counter-Strike. I've heard of those.
Oh, yes.
Also, in South Korea, esports is really a hotspot. It became a hotspot for esports. Now, the government backed a lot of it. They invested in broadband infrastructure. And also in 2000, the government here established the Korean Esports Association.
Yes.
KESPA. Wow. Now, over the last few years now, that was at the beginning of 2000, but over the last few years, just the audience has grown by tens of millions.
How big?
So in 2019, a survey is 450 million people across the world watched an esport event.
That's huge.
It's about 1/6 of the global population.
Wow.
That's at that time. That's pretty big.
Yes.
Right? Now, overall market size of this industry, right? In 2023, the global esports market size valued at 1.7 billion. Right? Big, but not that big.
Okay.
But now in 10 years,
Okay.
it's projected to grow to in 2032 up to $9.3 billion.
Just in 10 years?
In 10 years.
Wow.
So sizable increase. Still not huge, but gaining a lot of momentum here,
Sure.
right? Now, some of the driving factors for the size and the growth of this industry, the growing trend of live streaming games.
Yes.
So a lot of think about ease of access, especially for spectators.
Yes.
Investments being made into the gaming front, so technology, even physical infrastructure, arenas are being built, gaming arenas.
Right.
Right. And also investments into teams and players.
Sure.
Overall rising viewership, overall rise in ticket sales, as well as
Right.
other engagement activities to get them involved with the lifestyle.
And we're just talking about esports. We're not even talking about the gaming industry. We're just talking about that, like, esports.
The players,
like,
the teams,
yes.
competition.
Okay.
Absolutely. Also, there's more of a demand for these league tournament infrastructure.
Right.
Okay. Also, again, money drives a lot of things. So growing revenue opportunities in this space.
Right.
So there's increased participation of gamers, organizers, influencers, and even the developers. So there's more of a critical mass in this space.
Sure.
Right? Also, there's attractive international prize money. Also, there are opportunities to earn a high income. So this could be a real option to become a professional gamer or professional career for one person or not. And an interesting thing, colleges and universities have begun offering dedicated programs to developing gaming skills for students. So Syracuse University, March of 2003, announced it will soon offer a degree course dedicated to esports.
Yes. I mean, and Syracuse is like a major university.
Major university.
Yes.
Also in China. The Chinese Ministry of Education added esports and gaming into its postgraduate and vocational curriculum.
Right. So this is not just like a side thing.
No, it's
like
not going
something.
away.
Yes. But what about South Korea's influence on esports? Because we're a mecca.
Yes, huge. So a significant role being played by South Korea in the overall growth and development of this market.
Right.
All right, now South Korea is known as the birthplace of esports, or as you said, the mecca of esports. And they continue to dominate the industry with the highly skilled players as also the passionate fan base that comes out of South Korea.
And the thing is, I'll be honest, I still kind of don't get it. Like, I know there are really famous players like Faker, Paycall,
yes.
and then like don't send me the hate mail or the messages. Like, watching other people play the games, like I still kind of don't get it. Like, what's the 매력? Like
I didn't get it either. But last year at this League of Legends champion,
right.
people were wearing the gear.
Right.
There were pictures of their favorite players, and I go, hey, it's just like any other. It's like, hey, me wanting to watch a basketball game live or a baseball game. So it is, and you don't necessarily have to be a player yourself, like how many spectators out there watching a volleyball tournament actually play volleyball? But they could appreciate that, right? So that's how I came down to it. Now, in terms of South Korea, they're also global trendsetters in terms of professionalizing the esports industry.
Sure.
Right? So late 1990s, right, the popular game StarCraft really kicked off this revolution here. So many of these amateur StarCraft players started taking the leap to get into professional gaming. And we talked about 2000, Korea established the Esports Association. And then in 2001, 131 professional players registered to become part of members of online gaming teams.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then since 2000, Samsung Electronics has internationalized esports by annually hosting the World of Cyber Games, kind of like an Olympics.
Yes.
Right? And by 2010, cities like Seoul, like a lot of folks started attending esports more of a lifestyle event. So it's becoming more and more mainstream.
It is. It was kind of on the fringes in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
But then now, as there's more of a mainstream feel and people are understanding it more, it is definitely, it's what was it? 450 million people
watched an event that year.
I know, exactly.
And that was a few years ago, so that's going to climb up now.
Exactly.
Right?
So let's look at the future of esports real quick.
Very promising.
Yes.
Projections indicating continual growth in both viewership and revenue.
Yes.
Right. And let's really talk about just advertising revenue, because that's really how they make money.
Okay.
Right. A lot of it's aimed at the fan base. Right. A lot of them are displaying during live streams. Right, and online platforms. And it's going to continue to gain significant revenue for the overall market. Now, it's more of a kind of a cyclical effect when you think about the growing number of streamers.
Okay.
Advertising-related content is likely to increase, which in turn will generate more ad revenue in the market and grow the market share. Right?
Yes.
And big brands are really getting on, jumping on the bandwagon. In October 2022, Nike released its first commercial on an esports platform. So I think it's, and also just even what we started with, just this first esports World Cup. It's being held in Riyadh right now. And the largest combined prize pool in terms of esports history, $60 million is the prize money.
$60 million US.
Yeah.
We're going to have to jump to our phrase of the week.
All right, phrase of the week. Do not judge a book by its cover.
Like Bobby and I did.
Yes. But like esports in 2000, who knew?
Who knew?
Right? If you had $10,000 to go, hey, if you bet on esports, you could make $1 million in 20 years. Would you do it? I don't think I would take that bet.
Right.
But who knew? Right? So it's come a long way, and the future looks bright. Gaming, at one time was frowned upon.
It was.
Right? Parents are like, hey, why aren't you studying? Why are you playing so many games? But now it's like a full-blown industry.
It is.
Right? So what can we learn for this? So, well, for us personally, I would say the phrase of the week fits well. Do not judge a book by its cover. So personally, it's a reminder not to overlook or turn a blind eye to something that is unfamiliar or maybe uncomfortable and may not make sense to us at the moment. But let's try to have an open mind, especially when it comes to like people, relationships, ideas, maybe even opportunities.
All right.
And make some sense from the outset. So I want to just encourage us all not to dismiss it right off the bat.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Do not judge a book by its cover. We're going to end it on that note. Thank you, Bobby.
Absolutely. Have a great week.
All right. And for our final song today, 산다는 건 그런 게 아니겠니 by 서영은. We're going to end it with this one. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
너는 어떻게 살고 있니? 아기 엄마가 되었다면서 밤하늘의 별빛을 닮은 너의 눈빛 수줍던 소녀로 널 기억하는데 때론 부부싸움도 해보니 남편은 벌이가 괜찮니 자나깨나 독심만 고집하던 네가 나보다 먼저 시집 갔을 줄이야 산다는 건 그런 게 아니겠니 원하는 대로만 살 수는 없지만 알 수 없는 일이 길 좋아